If you were a child in the 1990s or even the early 2000s, you remember the feeling. It wasn't just about the food. It was about the destination. You were sitting in the back seat of your parents' car. You were hungry and you were bored, and then you see it on the horizon. It isn't a building. It is a beacon. It is a glorious double mansard roof painted in a shade of red so bright it almost hurts your eyes. It is striped with neon yellow beams of light. And standing out front, waving at you with a permanent painted plastic smile, is a clown. You park the car and you walk inside, and your senses are immediately assaulted. The floor is a chaotic pattern of brown and beige tiles, probably a little sticky. The smell is specific, a mixture of deep fryer oil, industrial cleaner, and sugar. But the most important thing is the noise. It is the sound of screaming. Not screams of terror, but screams of absolute, unbridled joy. Because in the corner, behind a glass wall, lies the promised land, the PlayPlace, a labyrinth of plastic tubes, ball pits, and spiral slides that smelled like sweaty socks and freedom. You could climb up into the Grimace's tower. You could slide down the Hamburglar's jailbreak chute. For 30 minutes, you weren't just at a fast food restaurant. You were in McDonaldland. It was a chaotic, loud, colorful utopia. Now, fast forward to today. Drive to that same location. The red roof is gone, the neon lights are gone, the clown is missing. In their place stands a gray box. It is a flat, rectangular building made of faux wood slats, dark gray brick, and brushed steel. It looks like a bank, or a dental office, or a minimum security prison. You walk inside. It is quiet. The floor is polished concrete. The walls are painted in safe, inoffensive shades of greige, that terrible color between gray and beige. There is no menu board with pictures of burgers. There are just sleek black digital kiosks demanding your order. There is no ball pit. There are no characters. The seats are hard, angular, and uncomfortable. The joy has been sanitized. The color has been drained. The magic has been replaced by efficiency. This is the story of the McMinimalism. It is the story of how the most recognizable brand in the world decided to grow up and in the process lost its soul. It is a story about corporate rebranding, changing health standards, and an architectural philosophy that is slowly turning our entire world into a boring, homogenized gray soup. Why did McDonald's kill the clown? Why did they tear down the castles? And why does a Happy Meal today feel a little less happy? To understand why the modern McDonald's feels so hollow, we have to understand what it used to be. In the 1970s and 80s, McDonald's wasn't just selling hamburgers, they were selling an experience to the baby boomer generation who were now becoming parents. The architecture was deliberate. The company mandated a specific design known as the double mansard roof. If you asked a child to draw a McDonald's in 1985, they would draw that roof. It was iconic. It created a silhouette against the sky that was instantly recognizable from the highway at 60 miles per hour. Inside, the philosophy was more is more. The seating was designed with fiberglass booths shaped like hamburgers. There were murals on the walls depicting Mayor McCheese and Captain Crook. The lighting was warm and yellow. It was designed to feel like a third place, not home, not school, but a separate space where families could congregate. And at the center of this universe was the McDonaldland lore. This is something we often forget. McDonald's had a cinematic universe before Marvel did. They had a cast of characters with backstories. There was Ronald, the leader. There was Grimace, the slow-witted but lovable oaf who loved shakes. There was the Hamburglar, the mischievous villain. There were the Fry Kids. These weren't just mascots. They were friends. They appeared in commercials on Saturday morning cartoons. They had their own straight-to-VHS movies. When you went to McDonald's, you were stepping into their house. The physical building was an extension of that fantasy. The apple pie tree in the playground wasn't just a piece of plastic. It was a character. The Officer Big Mac climb in jail was a piece of storytelling. This marketing strategy was aggressive, yes. It was designed to hook children for life, and it worked. For a generation, McDonald's was synonymous with childhood happiness. It was the treat. It was the reward. But as the 90s ended and the new millennium began, the cultural winds started to shift. The very things that made McDonald's successful, the bright colors, the sugary marketing to kids, the excess, were about to become their biggest liabilities. The turning point can be traced back to a specific era, the early 2000s. The internet was rising, information was spreading faster, and parents were starting to ask questions about what was actually in those chicken nuggets. The pink slime photo went viral, rumors about fake meat spread on forums, but the nuclear bomb dropped in 2004. A documentary filmmaker named Morgan Spurlock released a film called Super Size Me. If you weren't there, it is hard to describe how damaging this movie was to the brand. Spurlock ate nothing but McDonald's for 30 days, and the world watched his body fall apart. He gained weight, his liver suffered, and he became depressed. The image of Spurlock vomiting out the window of his car after eating a supersized meal became seared into the public consciousness. Suddenly, McDonald's wasn't the fun place for a Friday night treat. It was the villain. It was the poisoner of America. It was the reason for the obesity epidemic. Lawsuits began to fly. Parents sued McDonald's for making their children fat. Health organizations demanded they stop marketing to kids. The bright red roof and the smiling clown didn't look inviting anymore. They looked predatory. Ronald McDonald was no longer a friendly, magical being. He was a corporate shill pushing sugar and fat onto innocent toddlers. McDonald's panicked. They faced an existential crisis. If they continued to be the fun party place, they would be regulated out of existence. They needed a pivot. They needed to change the conversation. They looked at who was winning in the food market. It wasn't Burger King, it wasn't Wendy's, it was Starbucks. Starbucks was cool. Starbucks was for adults. Starbucks had Wi-Fi. Starbucks had brown leather chairs and jazz music. People sat in Starbucks for hours with their laptops. Nobody was suing Starbucks for childhood obesity. So the executives at McDonald's headquarters in Oak Brook, Illinois, made a decision that would change the landscape of our cities forever. They decided that McDonald's needed to grow up. The transition was slow at first, then all at once. First, the menu changed. The supersize option was quietly removed. Salads appeared. Apple slices replaced French fries in the Happy Meal. They introduced the McCafe line, espresso, lattes, frappes. They were desperate to tell the world, look, we have coffee beans, we are sophisticated. But you can't sell a premium latte in a building that looks like a circus tent. The architecture had to match the new menu. Starting around 2012, McDonald's began a massive renovation project called the Experience of the Future. They told franchisees that if they wanted to keep their license, they had to remodel. The wrecking balls came for the red roofs. The golden arches were lowered. The fiberglass hamburger seats were thrown into dumpsters. In their place, we got the international style. This is a generic term for modern corporate architecture, but online people have a different name for it: McMinimalism. The goal was to make the buildings blend in. They used natural materials: wood, stone, brick. They used neutral colors: charcoal, slate, espresso. They wanted you to feel okay opening a laptop there. But in doing so, they stripped away every ounce of personality. This architectural purge coincided with the disappearance of the characters. Ronald McDonald was slowly phased out of commercials. First, he was given a makeover, new clothes, a more active look. Then he was relegated to just appearances at charity events. And then in 2016, the creepy clown phenomenon swept the internet. Do you remember that? People dressing up as scary clowns and standing on street corners to terrify neighborhoods. It was a viral prank, but it was a PR nightmare for McDonald's. It gave them the excuse they finally needed. They officially put Ronald McDonald into retirement. Grimace, the Hamburglar, and Birdie followed him into the abyss. They were erased from the walls. They were removed from the cookie boxes. The McDonaldland mural was painted over with a beige wall featuring a single abstract painting of a coffee bean. The message was clear: we are not a playground anymore. We are a business.
But there is a darker reason for the new design, one that has nothing to do with aesthetics and everything to do with economics. Look closely at a modern McDonald's dining room. Look at the chairs. They are sleek, yes, but are they comfortable? No. They are hard plastic or metal, the backs are straight, the tables are small. The warm lighting is actually quite clinical, often LED strips that are just bright enough to keep you awake but not dim enough to relax. This is hostile architecture. In the old days, the comfortable booths invited you to stay. Families would linger for 45 minutes while the kids played in the ball pit. But in the modern fast food economy, lingering is bad for business. McDonald's doesn't actually want you to eat inside. Look at the numbers. Today, roughly 70 to 80% of McDonald's business comes from the drive-thru. Another huge chunk comes from delivery apps like Uber Eats and DoorDash. The dining room is the least profitable part of the building. It requires staff to clean the tables, it requires heating and cooling, it requires dealing with customers. The new gray box design is a subtle psychological trick. It is designed to be frictionless. You walk in, you face a wall of giant touchscreens, you tap your order, you don't talk to a human being. You take a number, you pick up your bag, you look around at the sterile cafeteria-style seating. You subconsciously think, this isn't very cozy, and you leave. Or even better, you don't walk in at all. You order on the app and park in the curbside pickup spot. The removal of the PlayPlace fits this logic perfectly. Playgrounds are expensive, they are a liability. Kids break arms, kids get stuck. They require cleaning, or at least they should have required cleaning. And worst of all, they encourage families to occupy a table for an hour while only buying 2 Happy Meals. So they tore them down. In their place, they put nothing, just more gray floor space. The modern McDonald's is not a restaurant, it is a food factory with a lobby attached. It is a logistics hub designed to move beef and potatoes from a freezer to a car window as fast as physically possible. The vibe was sacrificed on the altar of speed. This phenomenon isn't just happening to McDonald's, it is happening everywhere. Look at Taco Bell. The funky Miami Vice Miami pastel colors of the 90s are gone, replaced by the cantina style, wood, metal, purple LED. Look at Pizza Hut. The red roofs are being painted black. Look at Burger King. It is a design trend often called corporate Memphis or gentrification gray. It is driven by the desire to be premium. In the 2010s, tech companies like Apple set the standard for design. Minimalism meant luxury, white space meant expensive. Fast food chains, terrified of being seen as cheap or trashy, adopted this aesthetic to signal quality. They thought that if the building looked like an Apple store, people would think the burgers were higher quality, but they misunderstood why people loved them in the first place. Nobody went to McDonald's for a premium dining experience. We went for the comfort, we went for the predictability, we went for the fun. By chasing the premium look, they entered the uncanny valley of design. A McDonald's that looks like a Starbucks feels wrong because we know it isn't a Starbucks. It feels like a man in a tuxedo wearing clown shoes. It feels fake. This shift has created a sense of liminal space. Have you ever been in a modern McDonald's at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday? It is eerily quiet. The only sound is the beeping of the fry machines. There are no conversations, just people staring at their phones, eating quickly and leaving. It feels like a waiting room for a doctor's appointment. It feels devoid of human spirit. Sociologists talk about the concept of the third place. The first place is your home. The second place is your work or school. The third place is where you go to socialize, to be part of a community. For a long time, whether we like to admit it or not, fast food restaurants were third places for the working class. They were affordable, they were accessible. Teenagers hung out there after school. Grandparents took their grandkids there on weekends. The chaotic, loud, colorful design of the 90s facilitated that. It said, you are welcome here, make noise, have fun. The new design says, consume and leave. We have traded magic for efficiency. We have traded the sticky, bacteria-filled ball pit for a sanitized antibacterial touchscreen. And sure, the food might be technically safer, the buildings are more energy efficient, the coffee is arguably better, but we have lost a shared cultural touchstone. There is a sadness in realizing that the next generation will never know the thrill of the N64 kiosk. They will never know the mystery of what was inside the Grimace's tower. They will never know the specific joy of a Happy Meal bucket that doubled as a Halloween candy pail. They will grow up in a world where every building looks the same, a world of gray boxes, black fonts, and wood slats. A world where fun is something you consume digitally on an iPad, not something you experience physically in a plastic tube maze. If you drive past an old McDonald's today, one that hasn't been renovated yet, or perhaps an old Pizza Hut that has been turned into a bank, you can still see the bones of the past. You can see the shape of the roof. You can see where the playground used to be. They're like fossils. They are monuments to a time when corporations weren't afraid to be silly, when marketing was about imagination, not just algorithms. The death of the McDonald's vibe is not the biggest tragedy in the world. It's just hamburgers after all. But it is a mirror reflecting a change in us. We have become more serious, more anxious, more obsessed with health and efficiency and image. We killed the clown because we got too cynical for him. We tore down the playground because we got too litigious. We painted the roof gray because we wanted to feel like adults. But sometimes on a rainy Tuesday, standing in front of a silent, cold digital kiosk, ordering a meal that costs twice as much as it used to, you can't help but wish for a little bit of that tacky, neon plastic magic back. You wish you could hear the screaming. You wish you could smell the cookies. You wish just for a moment that the world was a little less gray.